boom, everything here has to be love to even be here. There's no hate, there's no pain, there's no anger. In order for it to even manifest and function, it has to be matching that vibration. I got this like jolt of understanding that whatever was here had to be of the same likeness and frequency or energy. Um, so that's when I asked the being, when I feel this love, this immense love just cover me, I asked this being, can I stay here? I want to stay here. And they're like, no, it's not your time. We have other things to show you. And then that's when the scene just kind of, it was like somebody pulled a curtain and the scene went away.
Today, I'd like to welcome Steve Noack to the show. Steve, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here on Conscious Conversations.
Thanks for having me.
I know that you have quite an interesting story, and the cool part is I don't have all of the details, so I'm excited to get into that with you and uncover all of your experiences with my audience. So that being said, why don't you just share a little bit about your background and how that played into your near-death experience and your spiritually transformative experience?
Sure. Yeah. I used to be a pretty normal guy. Grew up pretty normal. I had my NDE experience at 4. I tried to tell people about it, kind of talk about it once the memories started to return, because it took about 7 years before I could remember what happened. I knew something had happened. The being told and that I was in an accident didn't really feel right. So, and I was more sensitive. I didn't realize till I looked back at how sensitive I was as a child. So from about 4 to 11, I'm kind of knowing something happened. Around 11, I start getting the memories, try to talk about it and hide it. Um, when I feel awkward, when I feel like nobody wants to hear it, and you just kind of learn to, okay, keep it to yourself. And I just thought it was just for me. It was just something that happened and it was a memory. I didn't really need to talk about it. So I suppressed it most of my life. I sank into the human identity. Um, I wind up having more car accidents after getting run over at 4 by a car completely. Sports injuries, depression, addiction from the pain medication that the doctors gave me to deal with the pain and just function and go to work. So I was in a dark space. And when I was 33, it was 2008, when everything changed.
I'm curious if we could start there, because I know you said that you suppressed it and then you kind of tried to talk about it, but like, my curiosity is about the NDE, but also like, how did you know that it was an NDE at age 4?
It was just a feeling of like, um, you did something and then somebody's telling you did the opposite, and that wasn't what happened. But I couldn't intellectualize it. I couldn't recall. It was like trying to remember what you ate last week on a Wednesday for lunch. It was there, but I didn't know what it was. So little differences between me. Like I was really good with animals, like animals that I wasn't supposed to be around, as opposed to other people. My uncle had like an attack dog, and I don't know, I was petting it. And so there was an incident where I was around animals that were like super gentle, and just other incidents of sensitivity that I didn't really pick up on from the ages of like 4 to 11. And when the memory came back, I was like, yeah, something did happen. So it was a small win for me. And I felt like, okay, confirmation. But then again, I didn't really know what to do with this information once it came back until many years later.
So you said that you were run over by a car when you were 4.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you actually have like a memory of that, or is it like vague? Like, I'm just curious, like what happened?
Sure. Well, I was at the neighbor's house, and I was going to leave the driveway because my brother had called me over. We were getting ready to go to the mall. And I'm like, sure, the mall. All I see is toys, lights going off in my head. And I go down the driveway, And what I remember is a blur going down the driveway. And the next thing I know is I'm looking at myself and I see my eyes roll back, and then everything fades to black, and then it opens again. And I'm sitting with someone who I think is someone, and I'm leaning to my side. They're kind of holding me. My head's on their chest, kind of looking down. And my first thought is like, where am I? What happened? Not quite that fast, just kind of grasping at being almost in like a dream, but aware you're dreaming. So I'm like, what's happening? I open my eyes and my head is still facing down. And I see the bottom of hair that's probably like almost touching the ground. And it was silvery, like luminescent. And I noticed the bottom of a robe. And that's all I can see from my head being pointed down. And the bottom of the robe's like silvery. And I'm still grasping with what happened. So I turned to see who this was, figuring it was a person. And it was a hooded figure of light. They had no face, only light where their face should be. And I stared at them for a moment and I asked them what happened. And they said, Steven, you were in an accident. Put your head down. Everything's going to be all right. And so I kind of put my head down. I remember having a quick fleeting thought of like, how did I just talk without talking? So I'm putting my head down and I'm staring at this being's face. And all of a sudden I feel like I'm getting pulled or like stretched out. And I'm kind of going now through this hood that has light. And I'm going through this light. And it just feels like I was stretched out almost. And I arrive at, I suppose, at not the end, but this scene that just manifests in front of me. And it's flowers and it's meadows and rivers and mountains and nature, and everything is perfect. And it's like vibrant, more real than our world. Like I know that now, that it's like going from a black and white TV to like 4K high definition. So I see all these beautiful flowers that it still colors that today I've never seen, flowers. And I see and feel, I begin to feel this place, and I feel that the colors are alive, that the flowers are alive, but they're like their own beings. Like they want to be there and they want to give love and joy and all that. So I feel that. I'm looking around, I see like a path. It's almost like a brick path that's kind of going through these nature scenes, and there's this waterfall, and I see people in the distance, and they're kind of like, looks like they're having fun, they're playing. I can see like their silhouettes, and I see one that's not too far from me to my left, and it's an old man and it's a girl, like a young girl, and they're playing, and she lets out a laugh, and I see this laugh just go through the air, and I'm kind of watching it go down the path, and it touches me in the center of my heart. And that's when it was like, boom, everything here has to be love to even be here. There's no hate, there's no pain, there's no anger. In order for it to even manifest and function, it has to be matching that vibration. I got this like jolt of understanding that whatever was here had to be of the same likeness and frequency or energy. So that's when I asked the being, when I feel this love, this immense love just cover me, I asked this being, can I stay here? I want to stay here. And they're like, no, it's not your time. We have other things to show you. And then that's when the scene just kind of, it was like somebody pulled a curtain and the scene went away. And I'm standing in kind of a dark night sky, no stars, but not quite black, not pitch black or anything. And then I noticed these lines that are going to the left and to the right start, and they're like cross hatch pattern. It's like a grid lines. And they tell me, Steven, and they all use my full name, all the time. And nobody uses my full name. Steven, put your head down. Sorry, that was going back. Steven, this is the quantum field. People build their reality. Human beings build their reality using their thoughts and their emotions and this field. They send a signal, it goes to this field and cycles back through them. Now, a lot of this I'm just watching. I'm not understanding everything, and it wouldn't until many years later. I'm just watching it happen. So they tell me this is the quantum field, that people build their reality in relationship with this field and that they're connected to this field. So the next thing I see is like a pillar of light that kind of fades away. I see a pillar of light, and I'm looking at this pillar and I see these kind of like spokes on a wheel going out from the center, and there's a rim around it all the way around the edge. And they tell me, as you incarnate into this world, you're pure love. This is you in the center. You're the energy of love, and you spend your energy to have an experience with material reality. And so they were showing me, you're spending this energy and it's cycling back through you. And now you're having a material reality experience, kind of like they started showing me with the field. So as my energy came in, I spent energy, and I was looking at these chords, and I'm just like wondering where they go. And I see that they go to this screen. It's almost like a movie screen all the way around me. And they had like little TV sets or little memories in them. And I could see at the end of the cord was a memory. So fundamentally, I understood kind of like, okay, this is where things go. And then this is where they tell me every thought, every action, every emotion is recorded in this field. And these are the records. When you pass, you have a life review, but you don't need to pass to have a life review. You can do it while you're alive. And this is when they mention this is the ascension of the soul, and this is your soul work. And so I'm seeing this kind of wheel. I'm kind of recognizing I'm in the middle of it. There's these cords going out to these screens, or the screen that are kind of deposited little things in them. And that fades away. And that's when I noticed something kind of glowing, or I can't even say glowing because the words are hard to kind of say what it looks like, but it looks like a credit card, but there's a corner missing and it has a circuit on it, and it's way up in the distance, like up into my left. And I'm just focusing on it now that this other scene just kind of faded, and I'm wondering what it is. And that's when they tell me this is your divine blueprint. This is where your original creation came from, where it was generated from into being, and that I'm a character, or an energy playing a character in this material reality, but this is where I came from. So like, okay, cool. And then that fades away. Then I see a triangle that just kind of is coming towards me. It's lit up blue lines, kind of like the grid lines in the field. And it stops when it gets, I don't know, pretty large in front of me. And I notice a point of energy on each tip. And they tell me this is Heavenly Father, this is Divine Mother, and this is Holy Son. Make these three one. And that was it. That was all they ever said about that. And then that kind of faded away. I woke up and I had toys, and knowing something happened. So I'm asking, what happened? What happened? What was that? Oh, that you were in an accident. And I'm like, no, there was something else. And I was always had that split in myself until I got to be about 11. And then I was like, something did happen. And I started to get the very first memories of sitting with the being.
There's so much that I want to like unravel and dive into. Okay, so you said you woke up and then you had toys. So is that when you came back into this reality?
Yeah, that was when I basically came back into my body. I know I had extensive injuries, broken shoulder blade, collapsed lung, something going on with my heart, broken ribs, because I had literally been hit by the car and then dragged to the end of the road because the woman didn't even know she hit me. So people jumping out stopped her.
Yeah. Okay. So you're back. There's all these toys around you, and you're just kind of, as I'm trying to picture what this would be like as a 4-year-old, right? Like you just kind of
Yeah, the first question is what happened? you know.
Right.
I'm still grasping for that, what the heck's happening? And that's kind of how the experience felt as I walked through it, except for when I felt that love and I wanted to stay there. That's when I had a firm compass feeling. But other than that, it was walking through it going, what happened, you know?
Yeah. So one thing you said that really jumped out at me that I want to highlight because I feel like this is so important. When you were in this field and they said, you know, when you pass, you have a life review, but you don't need to pass in order to review.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you have more to say about that because I I believe that's true. I don't think we have to, you know, die to have a life review and understand the impact that we've had
Well,
on
I'll
others.
tell you, they came back and guided me on how to do it. And
Ooh,
then
yeah.
that was the big thing that happened. Once I was a normal person, I kind of settled into the human. I figured I didn't want to talk about what happened because it made me look weird.
Mhm.
Forget about dating and mentioning stuff like that. Forget about, so what happened was really what changed it. And in between the years of, okay, I'm starting to get the memory of sitting with this being. Okay, wow, something really did happen. Then comes another memory and another memory and another memory. And I'm like, wow, so we talked about this a lot of stuff, which I thought was really out there at the time. Like, what do I need to tell anybody for? So I go through life. I have another car accident, like an STE experience where I flip a car over 5 times at like 80 miles an hour. I was pretty young, like had just first gotten my license, hit a pole, flipped, 2 people flew out of the car. Um, so everybody got up and walked away. And that was one of those experiences where I checked out and somebody else was in control. Um, so totaled that car. There was a lot of other like injuries, and I lived as if I wouldn't be here. I honestly believed I wouldn't be here. Like I thought from all the childhood programming and the things that happened at home that I deserved pain. So that was my state of mind when they came back. And I had so much physical pain. I was taking medication, which I take none of now, just to function and go to work. So I was like, it was a cycle. So you were caught in that childhood programming, numbing the pain, um, all these injuries, thinking you deserve to suffer. So that was my state of being when everything changed. I was managing a video game store at the time, a well-known retailer, salary store manager, when I had to have surgery to clean up some scar tissue in my elbow from that accident, actually, where I had broken the window with my elbow. And I'm in there, I just sat down, just getting changed, and I start to feel really panicked. And I mean, and this was in 2008. I was 33 years old. Um, and I just start to feel panicked. And it was uncontrollable, crushing. I had never felt that type of panic for a reason in my life. So I didn't know what it was, but I knew I had to get out of there. And right in the middle of sitting up, I felt this energy start at my head, go down my body, and it was warm and it was love. And it was a love that I had not felt on earth. And I knew that love. You know, it didn't register right at the time, but you know, I'm feeling this warmth go over me and this love. And all of a sudden it sits me down. And I just get sit down like I'm on automatic pilot. And this voice comes in and says, Steven, almost the same thing they said to me at Force. Steven, put your head down. Everything's going to be all right, minus the you're in an accident part. So it was right then when I recognized the voice, and I recognized, oh my God, this is happening in real time. I'm communicating with this being from 4. That's when my head exploded. It's like all these visions started, and it was like somebody hit rewind on a tape reel, and they were just boom, 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 and all these emotions just in reverse, just shooting out of me, and I could feel them, and I started crying. Went and had calmed down, went and had the surgery, came out. A few days later, I see balls of light in my room. And then that was the real start of the supernatural thinking I'm crazy part. Cause I'm like, I'm going through the motions. There's no lamp there. There's no reflection. And it's slightly moving very slowly. And so what turned into one turned into a couple more, like a few days later. Um, mind you, I'm still working at this time. So I go back to work. I'm starting to hear thoughts in my head, and I slowly start to figure out they were the thoughts of these people that were walking into the store. So I would play little games and I would ask them, and it calmed down a lot. This was when it was really intense. It felt like I had some kind of energy in me, like the sun, and I couldn't shut it off. You didn't want to eat, you didn't want to do anything else but feel this energy. And so I start to hear people's thoughts, and I played a game where I would ask them in my mind, do you want a bag for that purchase? Then I would ask them out loud and I see if it would match. That's how I figured out, okay, I'm hearing these people's thoughts. And then it turned into emotions where I would feel these emotions just rush in and rush out, rush in and rush out. Sadness, laughter, all these things as I'm trying to do marketing one day were just shooting out of me. So I would just laugh for no reason. I would start crying for no reason. And I didn't know why. Um, Slowly it turned into where this energy was so invasive that I could feel who was hungry. And it would happen at work where I'd eat a full lunch, I'd be fine. People would come in. Eventually I asked them, hey, are you hungry? And I freaked a couple people out doing that. So I go back, um, I go back home, and all of a sudden I'm starting to notice things out of my peripheral vision, things moving around. Slowly they turn into apparitions, like full bodied silhouettes of people. Some are smoky, some are light, and they're moving around. Like I could just see them constantly moving. And I didn't think much of it at first. Um, then they started speaking, like, we're gonna take you to hell. You're not gonna do anything with your life. You'll never be anything. And there was a few sprinkled in nice voices in there, like grandma voices, but mostly just this crushing, we're gonna destroy you, in the worst way possible. Now, this started because I started saying to these apparitions, go away, you don't belong here. I don't want you here. At first, I thought I was being haunted. And so they start communicating. A couple weeks of that, I start to feel pain and pressure on the side of my head, and I can't shut it off. It starts when I go to bed and when my brain waves change, and I couldn't shut it off. So a couple weeks of that, I'm getting really disheartened, thinking, okay, I'm being haunted by all these entities and things like that. Now, I'm driving home from work. I'm beating myself up, being because that was my mentality at the time, very negative, but mostly on myself. I thought I had to sacrifice myself. You know, I didn't understand that was already completed for me to follow. So I'm driving home, beating myself up, and I start to hear this voice speaking to me to my right. Um, and I notice it's not whispery like some of these other interference things I was experiencing. And meanwhile, I'm trying to go to work, trying to maintain a normal sense of sanity. I was probably sensitive, but never full on psychic or things like that when I grew up. So I'm driving home, beating myself up. This voice comes in my car and starts telling me how beautiful I am, all the people that loved me, all the people that I've helped, all the people that care about me. And I'm like, wow, that's really different. And I noticed it was perfect. It didn't drop off at all. It wasn't whispery. So I asked the voice, who are you? And the voice says, I am. That was it. And my response, I am who? And then the voice just says, I am. And I'm like, by the third time, I'm like, yeah, I heard you the first time. I am who? Because I figure I'm dealing with something else, like a spirit or something. And on the third one, just said, I am. On the third one, it was like every single emotion I ever felt in my entire life, along with every memory, just shot up through me separately, but at the same time. And I still can't describe it. It was like I felt them all, each one separately, but I felt them all at the same time. And I had to pull the car over because instantly I started bawling. And that was like the hardest I ever cried. And the only thing I could say was it was like a reflex to the energy coming out. So I got home and I looked up I am, and that's when I figured out this is a religious thing. This is a religious word. And my parents never brought me to church, none of that. But I soon after work, soon after going back to work, I went to all these churches that I could find, literally to just knock and talk to people. I didn't get a ton of answers, but it started to make me feel like, okay, there's something behind this. Then started with the synchronicities.
There's so many pieces that I want to like go down different threads, but I guess what I want to just do is recap right now, because it's like there is so much information. So you were 4 years old, you were run over by a car, dragged down the driveway or down the street. You had this experience where these beings showed you the quantum field, they showed you life review, you felt like love, like actual.
Yeah, and it wasn't
love.
until I felt that heavenly feeling that I would never forget, and it would remind me of something later.
Right. So then when you were 33, so 2008, 33, you were you were panicked, ready for surgery, and then you felt this. So that being, that light being, the one who said, I am, is that the same being that was there with you when you were 4?
Different than the I am, but
Okay.
the same being that spoke to me at 4 spoke to me at 33.
Yeah.
And then later revealed themselves to be Elohim, or what we refer to as angels. But
Got
I
it.
started to see it much differently as they taught me that it was something that exists within all of us,
Yeah.
and like an embodiment of that higher version of ourselves. And the other things they taught me, but yeah, they would refer to themselves as Elohim, and then I would see the name everywhere. And then I would see Jesus stuff and angels. My parents never brought me to church, but I couldn't avoid it, and it was like almost being on autopilot where my energy was bringing me to certain locations. And I would be like, well, I'm here. Why am I here, God? No answer at all. And I would get back in the car. I'd start the car, and the first line off the radio is going down to the river to pray. So there were so many things in between that.
Yeah. So, okay. So from like age 11-ish to 33, you kind of just suppressed all of this. You kept having accidents, injuries, things like that. Now you're 33. These beings are coming back. So this is kind of a just telling you 2 places that I want to go. So first, I want to know if you ever got clarity on what those other beings were.
The apparitions, yeah, that
Yeah.
happened. That happened when I had a visit from the Galactic Federation of Light. And I was like, okay, get out of here, Jack. See you later. That's the state of mind I was in. I was like, leave me alone. I'm just trying to hold together a family and a job and my sanity. So Arcturians show up. They say they're from the Galactic Federation of Light. Never heard of it before in my life. And they say they're here to help me upgrade my DNA because I'm going to guide humanity through its evolution, and that I'm going to be responsible for holding a grid that was like roughly the size of New England. They showed me in my head, looked like grid lattice, and this grid would help anchor in the new Earth, or the new consciousness that people would run on. And it was almost like I saw it as a hard drive that needed to be cleared of these old programs, and that there were new programs being installed. But I had never heard of this, and I thought this was just some other spirit or whatever it was, and told them to leave, and they left. Then the next time they came back, I was eating Cheerios the first time. So the next time they came back was when I was eating Cheerios, ironically, and I didn't do it much. So after I was able to look up their info, I listened to them the second time. And then that's when they were guiding me to tune my divine instrument, to match my thoughts with my emotions and then my actions. They were kind of walking me through my healing. They spoke about these apparitions that I was experiencing, that they weren't happening to me, they were happening through me, and that I was transmitting some of these distorted images, and that it was like feedback in my system. So they guided me through starting to speak to these energies, basically move them like files in a computer into my toroidal field, giving order to the data, and the parts of myself that were wounded.
I don't even know what the question is about that. But like, uh, okay, so from where I am, and I've never had an NDE, I did overdose and I had an STE a couple of days after I came to, but I didn't die. So, you know, I've been on this journey and a lot of similarities. 2008, age 33. I wasn't 33 in 2008, but those were two big ages. Those were two big, like very prominent times for me. So I'm curious about those synchronicities. But what I have, you know, as I've realized, like, oh, this has just always been my sensitivity. And, you know, there was a lot, I was raised Catholic, so there was a lot of fear that there was dark, or that anything that was paranormal was not of God, and that it was of the devil. And so so what you're saying is that it wasn't like you were being haunted, like you thought you were being haunted, but you weren't being haunted because it was like your energy was creating these.
Yeah, it was almost like a computer that gets locked in safe mode because you just have so many trauma programs, and you're now just basically broadcasting these distorted images of yourself that never got loved, they never got what they needed, and you never made peace with it. So it's like I had so many out there in different dimensions, different versions of myself, that I had to do something with them. I had to clean up my hard drive,
Yeah.
subconscious.
Yeah. So one of the things that I believe, that I feel is, you know, true in my heart, and I don't know the truth. I want to know the truth, but I don't, you know, like I think that's still the discovery of being human, and the part of us that's veiled. But what I believe is that it's all light. I'm curious what you'd have to say about that.
You said it's all light.
We're all light. It's all light.
Oh yeah, of course, definitely. And that was one of the major things when I had these beings visit me and lift me out of my body as I was sitting outside. Instantly, I felt that love, and I felt like I had no pain. And then I realized, okay, that was my job, to get back to that light that I came from, where I felt no pain. I felt no hate. I felt no anger. None of that stuff. When I started to feel it in the body again, that's when they were teaching me, you can go back to heaven now. You don't have to wait. You can go back with your mind and your emotions, and your body's going to follow. And then that's what kind of got me out of that pain cycle of pain. But yeah, everything's light. And I'm not sure if we still have time, but how I figured out this healing stuff, because I was never like this, was I had a woman fall down outside my store as I was working there, still going through all this supernatural stuff, trying to decide whether I'm crazy or not. I had a woman fall outside, and she was in pain. She was an elderly woman, and she was moaning and in obvious pain. And I put my hand on her back, and she looked at me a couple seconds later and said, "I'm all warm and I have no pain." And I felt the warmth go up my arm. And it was during the time I was having that energy in my center, having trouble sleeping with all this stuff. So that's what guided me to start looking into healing, and just learning about that. And that's really what brought my identity kind of more into the heart space. And then I transitioned into like senior care. And then through that, I got to see God in every face that I helped. That the service to humanity is where I was able to see my image unaffected by anybody else's opinion. And then I realized, okay, I am that. That's what God thinks of me, not these people, these people. So it was kind of being ushered through into reclaiming that divine blueprint, my divine identity. But yeah, it was a woman falling. That's how I figured that out.
But I also have a question. I have several questions.
Sure.
Like, I'm like so curious about so many pieces of your story. So I hope I can capture and, grab every question that's coming alive, because they're just like firing
But
off
it was the
really fast.
Arcturians. Yeah, it was the Arcturians that came back and helped me through that apparition situation.
Yeah.
That, just to get back to that, they helped me figure out where to tune myself, what energies, inputs and outputs, and how to reprogram my cellular memories, things like that.
Yeah. So what I'm curious about, because it's my experience, so you mentioned addiction, and I am a recovered alcoholic addict. I had an eating disorder. I've been addicted to drugs and alcohol, and I just have an addictive personality.
Mm-hmm.
And as I've been sober for 10 and a half years, 11 years in January. I have 16 years recovery. So as I've gone through this journey of recovering from the eating disorder and drugs and alcohol, and I've stopped numbing myself, all of these, sensitivities, I don't even want to say gifts, because I personally believe that we all have them. But as I've become more in tune, I noticed that I am extremely skeptical, even though there is insane evidence that I'm not going crazy. So I know you mentioned something about how you thought you were going crazy. I'm curious, were you skeptical? Were you crazy? Like, what was your
Well,
mind saying
I
about all
think after a while, I mean, we don't really know how much it affects us until we can reflect on it. But I see myself as using drugs, at first to cope with pain, and then it was to numb emotion. And then I didn't realize how long I had been doing that in my life, numbing my sensitivity to these energies I didn't want to feel. So I'm still the biggest skeptic. I'm still the biggest skeptic, and I need to see something like 3 times before I believe it, which is what made this all the more, I guess, weird and fascinating, because I was the last person you would think, because I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't religious or any of that. I was the last person you would think that would be talking about the Trinity or Christ, or what these beings showed me, a Trinity as a triangle and things like that, and helping people heal. So yeah, I still am the biggest skeptic. I think it's healthy to say, nope, not until I feel it and know it, that I'm going to believe it.
Okay, so you're 33.
But that doesn't mean don't have faith in the things you can't see, because
Right.
there's things you can't see, and you connect to that through gnosis, through knowing.
Yeah. Yeah, I find it really interesting. Whether I'm having the experience or someone's, sharing something with me about me that they couldn't know, or, like all
Right.
these
I'm
things.
talking about proof in the 3D world.
Yes.
Proof that energy manifested itself in the 3D world.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so fascinating to me. And I'm curious, so you're 33, you're like starting to learn like what's actually real, what's
Yeah,
not real.
that woman falling down is what really helped me start to
Mhm.
get on a path to where I could put my energy to use somewhere.
Yeah.
Eventually it wound up like splitting me from my family, because they all thought I was crazy, and because I was never reading religious books or doing the things that I was doing. It was like a total reversal in personality within a few months.
Right. Right. And so I want to go back to like way back to when you were 4, and you were shown like the quantum field, you were shown how we create our reality, you were shown how to do your own, or you were told that you don't have to die to do your own life review. Is
Mhm.
there anything that you learned throughout your whole experience about those things, the quantum field, life reviews, creating our reality, that you can share with us here today?
Yeah, I would say definitely work on what truth feels like in your body, unattached to any subject. Just work on, what does it feel like when I say this and it's true, or I say that and I don't believe it? Because that's what can help you connect you to your divine blueprint. And really, the divine blueprint was what helped me get out of basically the matrix, as they guided me out of duality into non-duality, a more direct current. But what we want to do, is what I want to believe that I am all of creation. I want to feel it and believe it and work on getting feeling into my body. That's definitely something that's going to help, is work with what does knowing feel like versus doubting. Let me be a little more firm, do some speaking to my system, and correct the narrative and the programming that I received. So that was something that was super important. The Trinity, super important to bringing the alignment of my three energy bodies, my mind, my heart, and my gut, literally one of the biggest nerve centers. And the Trinity also taught me that the heavenly aspect and the earthly aspect of myself will become one. And then that's when they give birth to this son that I have inside me. That's basically the organizer of all the data and information in my body. When I connect with the Trinity, or when I make the sacrifice of any lower energy to my heart space where I have a toroidal field, I say, thank you for what you taught me. I send you here instead of relating to these thoughts. Then I start an alchemical process. I start to create an access to my 0 point energy. That's what I want. I want the circuit to flow rather than kind of be stuck. It's like to tell people, it's like a car battery on your car, where if you have a short, it's going to drain that battery. Well, the short is shame, guilt, regret, fear, stress, worry. I want to keep myself grounded in the present moment, in basically non-attachment or non-duality. So I have free will to choose my emotions rather than the environment polarizing me. So I learned polarity was big, learning how to control my own polarity. And just that we were already in heaven, that I didn't need to get back there. Like my journey was realizing and knowing that I was already there and allowing my body and my mind to play catch up. And that's what brought me to now having no pain and feeling great and having joy and love and peace. But there was some reprogramming and sacrifice and surrender of this data and information. And it was important. They taught me to look at it as a computer, that don't take it personal. This is just data and information. And that helped me address certain things a lot easier, to see that it was just data and storage, basically.
So, okay. So what I'm understanding, what I think I'm understanding is that,
Well, also that you were already loved before you came here, and
yeah,
that you were supposed to be human,
yeah,
and do things that help yourself remember that love.
yeah. So, okay. So I'm going to try to say what I think I'm understanding, because I feel like this is so powerful. And I feel like it's said in many different ways. And what you're saying is that, like, we are love and light, and heaven is already here. We don't have to go anywhere to get it. And we create our reality based on our thoughts, and our thoughts and beliefs create our reality, but those are just programmings.
Yeah,
And so
I'm already in heaven. Yeah.
yeah. So if we can unattach to those and not have judgment or shame or guilt about what we tell ourselves or the programming that's running through us, then we can see it more from a clear space, and we can let go of that and experience the heaven and love that we already are.
Exactly, because it's not contracting your nervous system. And that
Yeah.
contraction is going to happen through your thoughts and your emotions. And I want the ability to expand when I'm feeling tightened down to a certain set of emotions. I want to be able to speak to my system and say, I already am. I already am loved. I already am. And I want my system to go, yeah, you are, and start to open, as opposed to say, no, you're not. That's when I still have that trauma programming in there. So that's why I wake up in the morning, connect with the Trinity. I give gratitude. I'm growing in energy. And then I'm going to tell my body, I already am loved. I already am validated. Now I have more of my energy in the present moment instead of seeking it outside of myself, spending my energy. Because that was big with this wheel, where they taught me that you're this energy, you spend your energy. I also learned with those apparitions that were around me, this was energy I spent into places that either didn't get the love they needed or never got completed. So it's up to me to give them that completion. So that's when the Arcturians started to guide me to calling in all versions of myself back through the Christ into the moment of now, kind of tying together with a bow. That's where I felt a lot of my energy return. In other words, all the images and versions of myself in everybody else's head. Guess what? That's mine. I have a right to claim it, and they're all connected to that same place that I went to. So I realized I didn't have to go to every single person for forgiveness. I could go to the source they were all connected to, ask for it there, give it to them there, and that it would happen. So I'm having a love story, but it's with all of creation. It's not just certain characters. And I have to keep that in mind as I'm going about throughout my day, that they're all creator, but they got their programmings, they got their entities. You know, those get love from creator, but the person, they get love from me because they're a part of God, you know.
Oh, I love what you're sharing. And I just love having these conversations because I have studied the Course in Miracles. And once I started listening to near-death experiences, pre-birth experiences, like it just aligned. And from the Course in Miracles perspective, it is that we experience heaven when we're offering forgiveness, when we're seeing our brothers and sisters as innocent, then we see ourselves as innocent. We can see ourselves all as one, all of creation. So I just love how stuff lines up. It's so juicy. I love it. Thank you.
And it all really changed too when I took my stubbornness and just started using it on any energy that separated me from feeling peace and love that was in me rather than outside of me. As soon as that became my target, then it was all over. I was like, you're not going to win because this is already my space. And as I slowly started to discover that, that's when my reality changed. And I realized your reality is going to be very different, contracted in that tight ball of emotions if you give your identity to the world, or it can be very expanded and rich. And even time slowed down because I had experiences where I went to this gas station and had this child with his father, and he asked the father, "Can I have this candy bar?" He walks up, grabs it, shows it to him, goes back in line, and then he does it again. But he didn't ask for another one, and he only had one, even the second time. So I was like, that's kind of strange. I get back in the car and I start the car, and they're talking to a woman that won a radio contest, and they're talking about the answer. All of a sudden, the phone is ringing, and they're asking the question. And I'm like, but I just heard the answer. And I literally know the answer from hearing it like 5 seconds ago. Right. So I would have those moments as well. And it took me a while to regulate until they started showing me how to ground into a 0 point. In other words, positive and negative, make them one.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love for you. I know we're getting close on time, but I can relate through my own filter to that overload of like synchronicity and information and different things. So the language that you're using, I'm not familiar with. So I would love it if you could share how you can tone it down or not maybe tone it down, but manage it or neutralize it. Like,
you mean manage the intensity of the energy in you? Because it's like your higher self, basically. Like, I literally had dreams and memories where I would wake up on ships covered in sweat and memories of logging in to this experience. So it's more relating. That's kind of happening as you're burning off that earth relationship to yourself, where you have more stock and emotions put into who you are on earth rather than your spirit. So that's when it's going to be really intense. But the best way to do it is to ground, spend time in nature, do things that you enjoyed doing as a child, because that helped me hugely. If I wanted to buy this comic book, yeah, I'm going to do it because I did it when I was a kid. Whatever it is that brings you that type of joy, that's kind of what you need to be feeling, as well as unsubscribing to any lower energy that's coming in your system with a thank you for what you're teaching me. I send you into the heart space with gratitude. Why? Because I don't want this data to be downloaded into my cellular memory, into my body, and start yelling at my body. So that's why I want to look at myself like a computer. I want to be the programmer.
I love that visual of looking at ourselves like a computer and we're the programmers. So our consciousness is the programmer of this computer.
Right. And if I'm not doing the programming, then the world is doing it like it did to us when we were kids and made us feel unworthy, unlovable. So it's the same type of system, only I'm using it to my advantage by connecting with gratitude, programming myself, going about throughout my day. My energy stays present to heal itself. And then they slowly taught me that I could do it no matter the distance, that I could reprogram people's basically cellular memory by using photons or biophotons, quantum entanglement.
Yeah.
And I think we all can. I don't think I'm anybody special. I think I saw something that we're all connected to, that we all can with our will and basically love. When I have that love and I have the will to have other people feel that love, because that's what heals them.
This has been so fascinating, and I could talk to you for probably another couple of hours. So I will wrap it up now. Maybe we'll have to schedule another conversation, because I just, yeah, there's so much. Like, I just feel so many curiosities, so many little areas that we could just probe forever in. So with that being said, I asked my guests 3 questions. So the first question I have is, how would you define God, source, universe, creator, whatever it is, however you refer to the divine?
Sure. I would say, to me, it's an infinite potential that we could tap into as creators to create with, that it's everything, of course, a part of us and a part of everything we see. But first and foremost, we can use it to create dark, or we can use it to create light. But we're the ones who use our will to either twist it or keep its purity.
The second question is, what would you say is the purpose of life in this reality that we call Earth?
Sure. It was to experience emotions that we weren't able to experience without density and without bodies, and to learn things that we weren't able to as that perfect love that we were before we came here. And it's really such a beautiful, sacred opportunity to come here and be a part of it and realize that you're an actor in a play.
The final question is, if you could take one piece of wisdom that you have now and offer it to a younger version of yourself, what would that one piece of wisdom be?
That one piece of wisdom would be, believe what Creator says about you, believe what's already been said about you by Creator, instead of believing what the world thinks about you.
And how do people find you if they want to get in touch with you or work with you?
Sure. They can find me through trinityquantumhealth.com. That's trinityquantumhealth.com.
Awesome. I will be sure to include that in the description of the show, so that if anybody is feeling called to reach out, they can do so easily. And Steve, I just want to say thank you so much for not just being here to offer your experiences and your wisdom with my audience, but everywhere you are offering this with your own audience and with others. It's so refreshing. I can't even explain in words like whatever transmission I'm getting through this conversation, but I'm really hopeful that the audience is experiencing it and feeling it too, because it's very powerful, very joyous, and I'm just so grateful. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you for having me.
I would like to personally thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you haven't already, please be sure to like this episode, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications so that you never miss a beat. And if you really resonated with this content, please share it with all of your friends so that collectively we can expand our consciousness. Have a very blessed week.